Can we have roll call, please?
Councilman Beatty.
Present.
Councilman Butterbaugh.
Here.
Councilwoman Klinich.
Here.
Vice Mayor Ellis.
Here.
Councilman Ickes.
Here.
Councilman Kelly.
Here.
Mayor Pacifico is absent.
Thank you. Prior to presentations, I want to announce executive sessions held on following the February 12th council meeting and the February 26th work session to discuss personnel and real estate matters. Our first presentation will be from Mary Ann Sinisi, founder of Families United for Change.
I just wanted to bring Narcan tonight and to ask anybody willing to take it. I advise everybody to carry it. My son could be here today if the McDonald's that he used in would have had it when they had 5 prior overdoses that same month, or if the facility that put him out would have given him Narcan instead of writing him a prescription. It's free. It's easy to train, you know, just YouTube it. There's plenty of places that will train you, and I encourage everybody to save a life and to carry it. And just think of it as your child or your grandchild or even a parent that is prescribed something. So I guess, like I said, I'm just here to please ask you to carry this and save a life. Thank you.
I will let you know that I have one of those that I keep in my car. I have 2 young children who are both in college, and they each have that at school. Not necessarily that they would need it, but if there's somewhere that somebody does need that. And it is very easy to use. It's very self-explanatory,
Yep,
and it is a real lifesaver.
exactly. I have a hairdresser
So-
that I know that she had somebody in her chair. So it can happen anywhere. And I just don't understand some people's attitude that you're just enabling them. You're enabling breath, is what you're doing.
Well, and
No.
with the amount of fentanyl
You
that's,
need more
yeah,
than
I mean,
this.
it's, yeah.
Probably several doses. But
So-
again, you can get it for free. So I ask everybody to carry it, whether it's your business, in your car. They're now saying that it's not affected by the cold, it's not affected by the heat. So you can keep it in your car and it would be safe. So, again, I have some, and I'm willing to give each and every one that wants one. Thank you.
If you'd be willing to let some up there for after the meeting, and
Yep.
thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you. We have 2 additional presentations, which I'll meet those here for the presentations at the podium. The first one will be on Bleeding Disorders Awareness Month proclamation, and the second one on Autism Awareness Month proclamation. These are both by Mayor Pacifico. Proclamation of the City of Altoona, whereas the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services designated March as Homophilia Awareness Month in 1986, renamed in 2016 to Bleeding Disorders Month to expand and encompass all bleeding disorders, and whereas this Awareness Month will generate greater knowledge and understanding of all inherent bleeding disorders, including hemophilia, von Willebrand disease, and rare bleeding disorders, which affect millions of individuals around the world. Now therefore, I, Matthew Pacifico, Mayor of the City of Altoona, am proud and hereby proclaim the month of March as Bleeding Disorders and Awareness Month. And I present this to Mr. Ashley Day, who represents the organization. Thank you.
Thank you.
Give this in, sir.
Yes, my son, who is now 10 years old, he got diagnosed with hemophilia A, which is a bleeding disorder. He has been making trips to Pittsburgh. We go to Pittsburgh for his bleeding disorder. You don't realize how serious the bleeding disorder is. Basically, his blood does not coagulate like a normal person's blood does when they get injured. Everything it prohibits him from doing certain things, like he can't play football, he can't play basketball because a little bruise can cause him to bleed internally, and he could possibly have a fatal situation with the whole situation. We've been dealing with this for about approximately 5 years, and there's a lot of information out there for people who might be going through the exact same problem that we are. And I appreciate the city recognizing that this proclamation this month, and thank you very much.
Proclamation of the City of Altoona, whereas National Autism Awareness Month was first proclaimed by the Autism Society in April 1970, later sanctioned by the United Nations and World Autism Month to increase understanding of autism spectrum disorders, ASD, which encompass a broad range of communication, social skills, speech, and behavioral challenges that affect an estimated 1.1 out of 44 children in the United States. And whereas the Central Pennsylvania Autism Community, established in 2018, continues the mission to improve the well-being of children and families living with autism through society and community involvement, and continues to raise awareness of these disabilities. Now, therefore, I, Matthew Pacifico, Mayor of the City of Altoona, do proclaim the month of April 2024 as National Autism Month. And here representing the group is Mr. Joe Carper. Joe?
Mayor and Vice Mayor and City Council, thank you. On behalf of the Central Pennsylvania Autism Community, thanks for your proclamation designating April as Autism Awareness and Acceptance Month. We extend our sincere thanks to the city for the meaningful acknowledgement. By dedicating a month to autism awareness and acceptance, we affirm our commitment to inclusivity and understanding. It's a time to celebrate the unique strengths and talents of individuals on the autism spectrum, fostering a culture where everyone feels valued and accepted. Through education, advocacy, and support, we can break down barriers and create opportunities for individuals with autism to thrive. This proclamation serves as a reminder of our collective responsibility to champion acceptance and promote inclusivity. I now have the privilege of handing the mic over briefly to our Secretary, Krista Fry, who will talk a bit about some of the events that we have coming up as part of our organization in reference to the advocacy that the Vice Mayor talked about. Thank you again.
Some of the events that we like to do is we do a sensory night at the Curve. We get some businesses to donate their boxes to give the kids that normally cannot go to the Curve games some time that they can go, but then they have a space to go in. That would be April 14th that we are doing that. May 18th is our Autism Walk, which is one of our big fundraisers. We'll have some basket raffles and T-shirts and different things for sale. It's, again, to spread awareness for our kids with autism. And then we'll do an Easter egg hunt, and we just try to do different events for the kids that cannot go out and handle normal situations with neurotypical children. So, thank you.
Okay, public comment. Anyone would like to address council? Go ahead, sir. Please state your name and address. Or are you a city resident?
I'm sorry?
You're a city resident?
I am a city
Okay,
resident.
you're good.
Hi, good evening. My name's Walt McCullough, city resident in the Fairview area. Just wanted to ask a couple questions tonight about something that I've recently heard, and that's that the owner of the Gables building has plans to repurpose the building for immigrant housing. Has that, anybody else heard that rumor that's going on?
Every once in a while, I'll have somebody either call me or they'll mention a building or some structure in Altoona, and we heard there's plans for illegals, or we heard, and I know I personally have not gotten wind of any of that, so I don't believe that's the case.
It
unless
is
somebody-
concerning when you have a building that size and no business coming to Altoona. I mean, what'd they pay, $3.5 million for that building, and it's sitting empty. So, I mean, it makes sense. The guy lives in California, he could care less what happens here in the city of Altoona. And there's money for housing illegals. So, I can see somebody taking the easy way out and taking their property and doing it. I'm hoping that before any kind of rezoning would happen, that would allow that to happen, that the city would disallow that.
I don't know if that would be legal. Wouldn't that would make it part of our landlord laws then, which would open it up to more inspections, rental inspections. And that building's not necessarily in the best shape as it is.
It is not in good shape, and, definitely it'd have to take the facade down just to have windows to make it a legal rental. But we know that there's $3 million grant out there for that too, so, I would just hope that, the city would not become a sanctuary city, and bring additional issues to our city.
Well, I'm pretty confident.
Yeah, I'm very confident
Yeah.
that won't happen.
Yeah, there's-
Yeah,
so
we're not looking.
The short
to do
answer
that.
to your first question is no. I'd say most of us have not heard that rumor. I think anytime there's a large building like that, people will start to
Theorize.
speculate. It's kind of like the land out on Logan Boulevard, and it turns out it's going to be a car wash, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I just think that's speculation. I don't ever see that we would ever entertain the idea of becoming a sanctuary city. And those cities that are sanctuary cities, you can see the problems they're facing now, and so many of them are
Right.
really either publicly or, behind the scenes, really regretting that decision to be a sanctuary city, so.
Has the city ever considered any kind of regulation that would prohibit out-of-town owners, out-of-town landlords, and if they are out of town, actually having somebody either within the city
Yes.
employment
Yes.
to manage the properties?
Yeah, and don't even get me started. We just had a meeting for.
That's
before
already
this.
on, in our rental inspection program.
Yes.
That if you don't live within the county, you have to have an agent.
Local representative.
And
Yeah,
we're
but-
actually looking at,
A lot of times, those people are not gonna stand up for the best interest of the city. They're looking out for the landlord to get free housing.
well-
or some
we are
money.
currently looking at that, actually. We asked Mr. Finn, the solicitor,
Yep.
about either last month or month before, to look at what changes we can make to make that more strict. In fact, I think last month I went off on a tangent about we need to hold the property owners responsible rather
Right.
than dealing with these agents and managers.
These rental companies, these brokers that do it for people, they're charging 9, 10, 11%. That would be good income for the city. And I'm sure the city could use some revenue, even if they took a portion of that and subbed it out to somebody who worked on behalf of the city. It might be beneficial to raise the standards of these rentals, maybe kick out some of the less than desirable people we have moving to the area and bring some revenue to the city.
Well, we have 4 on the list. Correct me if I'm wrong, Rebecca, but we have 4 rental companies, individuals that are barred or have a 5-year ban, and we're doing the best we can to get them out of this town.
And there's others on the list that are about to get teed
Yeah,
up.
they're about done.
And Walt, I want to assure you, council has every intention of fixing the codes issues that we have as far as enforcement, taking it to Blair County Court, doing the things we have to do to strengthen the city's position against slumlords, people who don't value the relationship with the city. We have every intention of making that a very different relationship.
Yeah, it's a very nice city, and I moved back here after college to raise my family, and, I put my children through college with one condition, is that they leave Altoona when they graduate, because there's just no jobs here, and unfortunately, we're becoming public housing capital. We're really the next Johnstown. So, I really would like to see us not become the next Johnstown.
Well, I can assure you this, and I worked in every city west of Altoona on the grounds, boots on the ground, dealing with stuff. And we are far from being the next Johnstown or Uniontown or Newcastle or Wilkinsburg. You want to, New Kensington. We're far above the way those folks function when it comes to public housing.
Oh, good. Last thing, I just want to reiterate what Mary Ann said about Narcan. I work in the pharmaceutical industry, and I can assure you there's a lot of misconceptions to Narcan. And I don't care how big your first aid kit is or what you think you know. The best first aid in the kit, there isn't one single thing in there that can save somebody who needs Narcan. So if you have Tylenol in your medicine cabinet for when you get a headache, or you have a first aid kit or a box of Band-Aids in case you get a cut, get the Narcan. You never know when you might need it or when somebody might need it. So it's free. Please take it, and thanks for bringing samples. Thank you for your time.
Hey, Walt,
Thank
I
you,
want to
sir.
bring up one other thing. If you follow what the city's doing with CZB and our comprehensive plan, we've actually inventoried the city. We know what every structure looks like in the city. It's rated from over a 5-point scale, from needs repair to excellent shape. So this is a council that I think is very interested in how Altoona looks going forward.
Right.
And I think we're gonna make the needed changes to
No,
make that happen.
That's great to hear. And Mr. Ellis, after last month's meeting, I did look at some of the things, and just the Gables parking garage, I read the right to know. I got to page like 98 and said, oh, this is insane. And just the amount of pages of communication back and forth, and, different people wanting things. And Rebecca, you were tied into so many of those emails. It's insane the amount of
Time that it
communication
takes.
with out-of-town owners that could care less, so.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's something that I know the staff probably gets tired of hearing me say. Well, we don't have a lot of city resources to begin with, okay? These folks, and we need to really do our best to address the people that are abusing the resources of the city like that. And, I know this council's committed to trying to work through that kind of thing, but it's great that you recognize that, because I think it's real important that the citizens realize that there's a lot of time being spent on a few people that aren't really have the best interest for our city in mind.
And if you look at it, if you look at the church, usually 10% of the people do 90% of the lifting. That's basically what we have, from the codes area. Altoona has a great base of good quality people that really care about the city. But then we have some landlords who don't. And the dial needs to be turned up a lot on those people, because they're devaluing the city from a housing standpoint. They're creating other issues that cost the city time, whether it's police, fire, codes and zoning. Those all are interactive with blight and all the different issues that we're looking at. And I think this council has it keyed in. And I think in the next couple of years, you'll see things change pretty quickly.
And I think it's important to educate people on the tiers of housing. Like, you have the responsible landlords that do things by the rules, keep their properties up, make sure they're renting to decent tenants. You have Section 8 and subsidized housing, which are under the rules and purview of the federal government. So people there have to abide by the rules. Our problem is the substandard housing, the slumlords that are just looking for the wrong people. This is where your drug houses are. This is where your drug deals are taking place. This is where 90% of the problems in the city are happening, because of the few slumlords that need escorted out of the town and told don't come back. And we're in the process of that now. So,
And trust me, I understand the amount of work you're putting into these things. 10 years ago, and Mr. Beatty, you know this, I had a lot of rentals. I had 12 duplexes, an apartment building, and a single family, and I got out of it because it was just way too much side work. So it does take a lot of effort to keep the best tenants in there. So.
And we have a vote coming up later tonight where we'll be pulling some repository bids, and that's something we have to do a better job at too, working with the county and making sure who we're selling these properties to, whether it's through the repository sales or the tax sales or the judicial sales, sheriff sales, and whatnot. We have to do a better job working together to keep the riffraff or the absentee and uncaring property owners out of here.
Sounds good. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your interest. Move on to resolutions.
Item A is approving the minutes of the Altoona City Council meeting held Monday, February 12th, 2024. Item B is approving the following emergency contacts associated with failed piping on 17th Street between 4th and 5th Avenue and authorizing payment of same from ARPA stormwater funds. Geyer Brothers in the amount of $26,852 for storm pipe repair and subsequent slip lining of 24-inch pipe, and Ventura Construction Services in the amount of $4,500 for concrete roadway construction for a total amount of $31,352, and further authorizing the interim city manager and the director of public works to execute any documentation associated with same. Item C is awarding the 2024 Capitol Street Reconstruction Project to Granis Brothers of Hollidaysburg in the amount of $1,301,247.44 payable from the capital budget ARPA line item, and further authorizing the interim city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item D is awarding the 2024 CDBG Street Reconstruction Project to Granis Brothers of Hollidaysburg in the amount of $245,938.99, with $243,451.88 payable from CDBG 2023 program year funds and $2,487.11 payable from ARPA funds, and further authorizing the interim city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item E is awarding the mansion in Fort Roberto streetscape and stormwater improvements to Amaron Construction of State College in the amount of $1,621,046.80 payable from ARPA funds, and further authorizing the interim city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item F is awarding the demolition of the 10th Avenue Expressway underpass towers to Clark Contractors of Bedford in the amount of $149,764.85 payable from ARPA funds, and further authorizing the interim city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item G is awarding the base bid of the Pleasant Village lighting improvements to Betwee Electric of Newry in the amount of $288,610 payable from ARPA funds, and further authorizing the interim city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Now, item H3 through U are all easement agreements between the city, and I will name the person. They're all for the purpose of construction, installation, repair, and maintenance of a stream wall along Spring 1, as shown on their easement plans that were attached in your packets. And they're all further authorizing the interim city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item H is Tammy G. Munn. I is Richard E. Flaren and Alice Flaren. J is Margaret Fields. K is Jeffrey Waite. L is Jeffrey Waite. M is Jeffrey Waite. N is Cindy A. Hampton. O is Michael Luther and Elizabeth Jordan. P is Karen D'Antonio. Q is Harold Traum and Clara Traum. R is Juniata Civic Association. S is Stephen Cover. T is Stephen Cover. U is Symington Plaza the Fourth. And the next one is item V, which is approving the submission of a grant application to the Department of Community and Economic Development for municipal assistance program funds in the amount of $137,500 for the purpose of updating the subdivision and land development ordinance and the zoning ordinance, further authorizing the interim city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item W is approving an extension of the contract with CZB LLC for the purpose of updating the subdivision and land development ordinance and zoning ordinance in the amount of $275,000 with $137,500 payable from ARPA funds and $137,500 payable from the DCED MAP funds, and further authorizing the interim city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item X is authorizing the Altoona City Planning Commission as planning agency for the city in conjunction with city staff and the consultant CZB LLC to proceed with the update of the subdivision and land development ordinance and zoning ordinance upon adoption of the comprehensive plan, and further authorizing the interim city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item Y is awarding a demolition contract to G&R Excavating and Demolition of Tyrone for the demolition of 308 2nd Avenue, 1112 6th Avenue, 1314 North 4th Avenue, and 104 Kettle Street in the amount of $41,245 payable from the city's CDBG Blighted Property Program, and further authorizing the interim city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item Z is approving the bailment agreement attached hereto between the city and the Railroaders Heritage Corporation, doing business as the Railroaders Memorial Museum, for the use of a 1947 PRR Mack fire truck, and further authorizing the interim city manager to execute all documents and the city clerk to attest to same. Item AA is approving a repository bid in the amount of $250 submitted by Brock Clinton of Buzzin Ideas LLC of Lancaster for property located at 3127 to 33 7th Avenue, in the amount of $250 for property located at 417 South 8th Street, in the amount of $250 for property located at 10th Avenue / 2400 24th Street, in the amount of $250 for property located at 323 1st Avenue, and further authorizing the interim city manager to execute the taxing district form. Item BB is approving a repository bid in the amount of $250 submitted by Joseph Gaines of Cherry Hill, New Jersey for property located at 324 Spruce Avenue, in the amount of $250 for property located at 719 North 5th Avenue, in the amount of $250 for property located at 819 6th Avenue, in the amount of $250 for property located at 2409 Oak Avenue, and in the amount of $250 for property located at 1521 to 20th Avenue, and further authorizing the interim city manager to execute the taxing district form. Are there any additions, deletions, or anything needs to be pulled for a separate vote?
AA and BB, I'd like to pull.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll call for the consent vote on all items excluding AA and BB first. Councilman Beatty,
Yes.
Councilman Butterbaugh,
Yes.
Councilwoman Clinich,
Yes.
Councilman Vice Mayor Ellis,
Yes.
Councilman Ickes,
Yes.
Councilman Kelly,
Yes.
and Mayor Pacifico is absent, and the vote passes 6-0. And I'll call for the items AA, which are all repository bids, each in the amount of $250 by Brock Clinton of Lancaster for 3127 to 33 7th Avenue, 417 South 8th Street, 10th Avenue, 2400 24th Street, and 323 1st Avenue, and further authorizing the interim city manager to execute the taxing district form. Councilman Beatty,
No.
Councilman Butterbaugh,
No.
Councilwoman Clinich,
No.
Vice Mayor Ellis,
No.
Councilman Ickes, Councilman Kelly, and Mayor Pacifico is absent. The vote does not pass 0-6. We have item BB, which is also a repository bid. Each property is in the amount of $250, and it was submitted by Joseph Gaines of Cherry Hill, New Jersey. The first property is 324 Spruce Avenue, 719 North 5th Avenue, 819 6th Avenue, 2409 Oak Avenue, and 1521 to 20th Avenue, and further authorizing the interim city manager to execute the taxing district form. Call for the vote. Councilman Beatty,
No.
Councilman Butterbaugh,
No.
Councilwoman Clinich,
No.
Vice Mayor Ellis.
No.
Councilman Ickes. No. Councilman Kelly. Mayor Pacifico is absent. The vote does not pass 0-6. We have one ordinance on the agenda for adoption, and it was introduced by Councilman Beatty, and it's an ordinance of the City of Altoona, Blair County, Pennsylvania, which amends Chapter 700 Vehicles and Traffic of the Altoona City Code, particularly Articles 12, Handicap Parking Spaces, Section 700-26, General Specifications to clarify the specifications for handicap parking spaces, to provide a reaffirmation of the remainder of Chapter 700, to provide a repealer, savings clause, and an effective date. Is there a motion for adoption?
I'll make that motion.
A second.
Second.
This ordinance was moved for adoption by Councilman Beatty and seconded by Vice Mayor Ellis. And I will call the roll for a vote. Councilman Beatty.
Yes.
Councilman Butterbaugh.
Yes.
Councilwoman Klinich.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ellis.
Yes.
Councilman Ickes.
Yes.
Councilman Kelly. And Mayor Pacifico is absent. The vote passes 6-0.
Okay. Is that all, Linda? I'm done. Okay. City manager updates.
I have nothing, unless you want Linda to read those again.
Thank you, Chief.
You're about to get the elbow there.
Councilman Kelly, anything for the good of the order discussion?
Well, yeah, just, Linda's so fast, I didn't have a chance to really get this in, but I just want to make sure I'm clear about the vintage fire truck. We're retaining title to that. We're allowing the Railroad Museum to use it, display it, and they have all responsibility for maintenance, the insurance.
We're going to provide the insurance for it. It's such a small amount, we're going to provide it.
Okay.
Make sure it's maintained.
Okay,
The city retains title to
okay,
the equipment.
yeah. I mean, that's really kind of a real collector's piece.
Yeah.
You know, most people wouldn't even realize that the railroad actually had 2 fire stations of their own here in Altoona, and that was from one of them, so. All right. Yeah,
Right now,
Dan,
and
sorry.
part of the reason it's going there is so that people can actually
See it.
view it and see it. Right
Yeah.
now, we have the title and we're paying the insurance and no one gets to see it. And honestly, it's taking up space in one of the fire bays that we could use for other things. So it's kind of a win-win.
Yeah, yeah, I understand. I was a little slow on the trigger there, but Linda was just flying there. It sounded like the State of the Union address. You were going so fast through everything there, so. All right, that's, Mayor Ellis, that's all I have, so thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Ickes.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Ellis. I have nothing this evening, but Linda, I would just say that you sounded better than the State of the Union this evening. Thank you.
I'm responsible for the decorum here. Let's keep it.
It's dangerous.
My wife's going to be so proud of me for staying out of trouble.
Councilmember Butterbaugh, you're up.
No, nothing here. Thank you.
Councilmember Beatty.
To address Walt's concerns a little bit better, at working with CZB and all the different aspects that we're looking at, we're hoping that in another 4 years that the city can be a completely different look. And that's going to take people, it's going to take commitment, it's going to take buy-in from the community. But I really think it's doable. And we have to start looking at what we can do to provide the staff with the support and the ordinances and the codes and the enforcement actions that we can have to get Altoona in a better place. And with the inventory that we did property by property, we have a better way of identifying the neighborhoods who need help. And the comprehensive plan actually has a way to do that. We have to look at funding and all the different aspects. But in my lifetime, I don't think I've seen a group of people that were as committed, to getting us there. And I really think that, we can look for some big changes in Altoona. Thank you.
Councilmember Klinich.
No, I have nothing.
Okay. I just want to elaborate a little bit more on what we exchanged there a little bit ago. we have issues here, we have our own problems, but our issues aren't anything near what goes on in some of these other cities, and it's because of the leadership and the staff that our city has. It's keeping us above water. And I just want everyone to know that this council's committed to get us from the point we're treading water and keeping our head above water to a point where we can function in a somewhat better way. We appreciate anyone that comes in here and has positive ideas to give us. But, I mean, every day, everyone sitting up here is engaged to try to make the work of these folks, departments down each side here, a little bit better. So, that's all I have. Media. Bill, are you the only one here? Okay, you're up. I was gonna put somebody else in front of you if you weren't.
Thank you. Would anybody care to comment on the purpose and the importance of updating the subdivision and land development ordinance and the zoning ordinance after the comp plan's done?
Bill, I'll just give you one example, that when we looked at a situation on Kettle Street, in a 6-block area of Kettle Street between Pleasant Valley Boulevard and Bell Avenue, there are 5 different zones, which is absolutely, in my opinion, outrageous. It's contrary to any type of positive development, and we need to simplify the process here rather than make it more difficult for people who want to invest in our community.
And that's something that needs looked at every so often, because neighborhoods can change from one use to another, and so it just makes sense to go through it, and especially when the comp plan's being done. CZB's doing a really good job with that comp plan, so we want to make sure we have the subdivision and zoning in line with that.
My understanding is that this is the time when, once the comp plan has been finished, that subdivision and land development dovetails with the comprehensive plan for the next decade.
Well, and I want to say CZB has been doing an excellent job, you know, in presenting and gathering information and communicating to council, to the redevelopment authority. They really have been doing a great job. And I think what the communication within the city, the different departments, really appreciate what they're doing, so.
Next question. What is the nature of the updates to the handicapped parking ordinance? I'm sorry. Okay. Thanks.
Bill, actually what kind of brought that up, we had an issue down in Juniata where someone lived on one of the H alleys. They're very, they run through the middle of a block. And it was a handicapped elderly couple. And they couldn't get one in front of their house because it was too close to a street intersection. So basically we were redefining the boundaries so we could put one in. So it came up as kind of a, we can't do that, what can we do to make things work better? And that was the result that we came up with.
So you actually, in that case, made it more liberal in a way to allow that.
Made it more accessible, I think would be a better word.
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
You hate liberal.
Yeah, liberal.
Sorry, Ron. Next question is, would somebody be able to explain to me the demolition of the underpass towers, like the purpose of it and what's gonna happen to the actual underpass?
That was sort of one of my pet peeves, Bill. These are the two pedestrian underpasses that were such a great idea back in the 60s and 70s to access from one side of the 10th Avenue Expressway to the other, that turned into degenerates and all kinds of other improper activity in the 70s and 80s. And I think sometime in the 80s or 90s they were closed up, chained up with fencing. And we've had some issues where people were cutting into the fencing and staying in there. They're in deplorable conditions. And
Oh, you mean people actually getting in there?
yes,
You mean into the underpasses?
yes.
Oh, okay.
So I'm someone who believes in not kicking the can down the road. And if we have the money now through the ARPA funds to deal with this, let's get it dealt with so we don't pass it on to one of our other councils.
Well, are you going, what's gonna happen to the underpass? Are they gonna like cinder block or concrete block it off or what?
I'll defer to Nate on that.
Just gonna kind of create a cheek wall, if you will, on the inside. Put
I'm
some
sorry,
acc-
what wall?
They're just gonna build a wall at the bottom of it, where the steps go into the building. Put an access panel in there so that if somebody wanted to put fiber, there'll still be a hole under the road because they are structurally rated. So there would still be access in the future. Somebody wanted to put piping under there to get from one side to the other. Wall, backfill it, or tear the roof down, backfill it, and seed, topsoil and seed.
But to get into the access panel, to get into the tunnel, to like lay a pipe or something, would you have to dig it up or?
Yeah.
Next question is, the Pleasant Village lighting project, is that a permanent fix then, finally?
Yeah, the lighting in Pleasant Village is kind of end of life, 40 years plus. So anytime we have an issue over there, we have issues getting from light to light with its direct bury cable. So this just kind of cleans up everything for the next 50 years.
Oh, it's not just for that one light that was a,
It's everything.
oh, okay. So what is it then you're gonna do? I'm sorry.
New service, 14 new poles, foundations.
Oh, okay. So basically redoing the whole street lighting system
Yeah.
over there? Okay. And then one final question, I guess, for Tom. What is bailment? What's that mean?
Bailment is when you own a piece of property, but you're giving it to, putting it under someone else's care, in the most general sense. So, in response to Councilman Kelly's question, the city will still own and be the title owner to that fire truck. But as, Joe was alluding to, this will enable the Railroad Museum to put it on display, use it so that the public has the opportunity to see it and enjoy it.
How did that come about, that agreement?
I believe, and you can correct me, Adam, go ahead.
They reached out to the mayor last year, and we just didn't get a chance to get it done until this year, so.
What year is that truck?
1947,
And it's a Mack truck, right?
yes.
Is it the Mack fire engine? Is
Mhm.
that? Okay.
Yeah.
Was that originally property of the railroad?
Yeah, yep.
Oh.
I think it was stationed at the fire station that was right beside the museum, is where it was stationed.
You mean Altoona, the factory there was actually owned by the railroad?
That was the railroad shops.
Oh, okay.
And if you look, you can still see the tower. The second fire station is along Chestnut Avenue going down towards Juniata. It was in the area of the old Altoona car shops.
Yeah, I was
and you
aware
can-
that that was a fire station.
Yeah, so they had two fire companies.
You mean that was the second one, the
Right.
one by
Yeah.
the old home nursing place? Thank you, that's all.
You're welcome, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Meeting adjourned.